Hello, family. So now that we have come to the conclusion that, there'll be signs, life and death, and thereafter, scientifically, spiritually, and I want to start, you know, bringing it together with the what we should be actually preparing for. And I'm not trying to scare anybody. Like I said, if these things are supposed to happen, then um, we just got to prepare ourselves mentally, spiritually, physically. Make sure that we are able to take the information and do something good with it. So that way we're not caught off guard. There's a lot of things going on in the world today, so many signs, so many predictions, so many events unfolding, and let's get into that. And being able to look into the future, you don't have to really be so mystical. However, I believe that we were all created with the ability to see beyond just our present situation and use the past as a springboard to be able to see into the future. So, right now, we all know that it's been verified that they're spraying stuff in the air, in the atmosphere to try to block the the sun's radiation. Um, and then, there's probably more reasons other than just trying to prevent global warming. We'll dive into that a little bit deeper, but let's just work off that premise. And one thing that we know for sure, verified, is that we're in a super El Nino. Basically, that just means that the ocean and the earth is so hot, and anything that whenever the ocean rises above 3%, then it has such a crazy effect on the weather, um, and how the water moves, what that warmer water does, and the way that it creates the anomalies. And it also ties into the geomagnetic anomaly that we're going through right now, um, the shifting of the poles, uh, and it all combines together to create this soup of a bunch of crazy things we got to prepare for. So right now, we're we're seeing so much fire, and we're trapped in two dome heat bubbles in the United States right now. It's actually going across the whole entire world. Um, but here in the United States, uh, what this is doing is it's wreaking havoc as far as record breaking temperatures and low water reserves, um, and plus data centers tie into this. They consume so much water, and so we're gonna kind of scale all that craziness that's going on scientifically first, and Then we'll move into the theological side and show you how science and religion, theology, how they actually mesh and come together. Um, so, since we are in a place where this heat is being trapped in these heat bubbles, um, it's and the warm waters, it's starting to make the storms that we do end up having a lot more violent and a lot more concentrated to where that so the bubbles right here say, and then for instance it's pushing that tropical weather and uh those rainy parts of the continent right now that's getting so much water. They're having crazy floods. People are getting swept away. uh, just it seems really odd that we could be in such a drastic drought, but yet we're also receiving so much rain that places can't handle it, and why these things are happening. So when the oceans rise above 3 degrees, it starts messing with the entire system, and we're more prone to have catastrophic events, hurricanes. This crazy weather is part of that. But there's something else that's going on that it's not getting enough attention. And, they talk about global warming, and part of that is the greenhouse effect. And plus, we got aerosols being sprayed in the atmosphere, trying to block out the sun's radiation. Um, but what it's actually doing is that it's creating an umbrella, okay? And the heat is coming up and it's getting trapped underneath this umbrella, and it's actually having a worse effect. Trying to screw with Mother Nature. Mother Nature knows what it's doing. We go through these cycles, and you have these capitalistic and geopolitic people saying that, oh, well, global warming, we got to fight it, we got to do everything we can. But if they really cared, then we'd be doing a lot of different things with taking care of our earth. And if they know that there's global warming, why then start pushing AI so hard that it consumes so much water, yet we're having droughts in this area, in a lot of areas where the data centers are, and where there's too much water. um, we cannot handle the amount of precipitation that's that's overwhelming the entire system in those areas. So if they really cared, they would be more geared towards the the ability to not only just try to control the climate, um, playing quote unquote the grand architect, the person that controls these things, Mother Nature. It's always going to backfire. So, um, but one of the things that I want you to prepare for is these this crazy weather that's going to be going on. And I'm not trying to scare you, but there's um, there's a catalyst that's already been the first dominoes already fell. Okay, um, and with that warmer water, it's beginning to melt the underneath the Antarctic ice shelf. Okay, so a continent that's bigger than Australia, and it's bigger than Africa, and it's really gigantic. Well, the water underneath it used to be a really solid pack, okay, but the warmer waters are starting to go underneath it and melt it from the bottom up rather than the sun and heat melting it from the top down. um And one of the things that does is it allows methane and the, don't get scared. This is just something that happens, but it's going to have, because so much of that is being stripped away. Uh, there's so much carbon monoxide that's underneath there, and methane, and those are like some of the main contributors to global warming. Not only that, but when you have so much carbon monoxide, you basically strip the air of oxygen. Okay. Um, and mixed with methane, that that works in tandem with each other, and there is so much trapped underneath there that we are going to be going into these crazy weather cycles even faster. And I want to share something with you that I've been working on, and it's um it's pretty important. Um, and it's the Pleiades Glacier, or I don't know how to pronounce it properly, is melting from the bottom up. That's what I'm talking about, that giant glacier over Antarctica. And this is the response.
Yes, you are exactly right. The melting of the Thwaites Glacier, often called the Doomsday Glacier, is heavily driven from the bottom up by warm ocean water. While atmospheric warming does affect the top, it is the hidden interaction between the ocean and the underside of the ice that has scientists deeply concerned. Here is a breakdown of how this underwater melting works and why it's so dangerous. 1. The intrusion of warm ocean water. The glacier doesn't just sit on solid rock at the coast, it flows off the land and forms a massive floating ice shelf over the ocean. Deep, relatively warm and salty ocean currents, circumpolar deep water, are being driven toward the West Antarctic coast. Because this water is dense and warm, it snakes beneath the floating ice shelf, eating away at the glacier from below like an ice cube bobbing in a warm drink. 2. High-pressure tidal intrusions. Recent data has revealed that the problem goes even deeper than the floating shelf. As the tides rise and fall, pressurized, warm seawater is being forced miles inland beneath the grounded part of the glacier, the section that actually rests on the seabed. This lifts the ice slightly and allows warm water to vigorously melt the glacier's literal foundation. 3. Terraces and crevasses. When scientists sent an underwater robotic submarine, named IceFin, underneath Thwaites, they discovered that the bottom of the ice isn't flat. It's full of staircase-like formations called terraces and deep vertical cracks, crevasses. While the flat sections of the underice melt slower than expected due to a protective layer of fresh meltwater, the crevasses and vertical walls are melting incredibly fast. Warm water channels into these cracks, widening them from the inside out and destabilizing the structural integrity of the ice sheet. Why the bottom-up melt matters. The point where the glacier detaches from the seafloor and begins to float is called the grounding line. Because Thwaites rests on a seabed that slopes downward inland, As the bottom melts and the grounding line retreats, ever thicker ice gets exposed to the warm water. Right now, the floating eastern ice shelf acts like a massive structural buttress, holding back the land-based glacier behind it. Because of this aggressive under-ice melting and fracturing, scientists project that this protective ice shelf could completely disintegrate very soon, which will likely cause the glacier behind it to flow into the ocean much faster.
Okay, so we're going to build up to how this has an effect on the entire ecosystem. And the point is that the CO2 that will eventually be released is catastrophic due to the Earth's inability to dissipate the gases. Not only that, the greenhouse effect would cause a global disaster along with famine and plague. And this is what I told the AI, and this is the response.
You are hitting on the